The Warriors were one game away from falling into a 31 hole. The crowd in Boston was loud, ruthless, and hungry to see Golden State collapse. Klay wasn't hitting, Draymond was struggling, and the Celtics had all the momentum. But then, Steph Curry walked into the building locked in like never before. This wasn't just a great shooting night. This was one of the most iconic performances in NBA Finals history. The night Steph silenced TD Garden with 43 points of pure brilliance, Game 4 of the 2022 NBA Finals was more than just a must-win. It was the defining moment of the Warriors' dynasty, and for Steph, it was personal. Coming into the game, there were doubts, real doubts. Could Steph handle the physicality of Boston's defense? Could he carry the load while his co-stars struggled? Would he finally win a Finals MVP? Boston had just taken Game 3. They looked younger, stronger, and more cohesive. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were attacking relentlessly, while Al Horford, Marcus Smart, and Derek White made life hell for Golden State on both ends of the floor. On top of that, Draymond Green was a complete non-factor offensively, and even got benched for stretches of the second half. Klay Thompson hadn't been able to find his rhythm. Wiggins was solid defensively but wasn't giving enough firepower on offense. That meant one thing. If Golden State was going to tie this series, it would have to be Steph. Boston came out strong. Early in the game, they were throwing everything at him. Drop coverage, hedges, switches, even full-court pressure just to wear him down. They blitzed him off screens and bodied him at the rim. The strategy was clear. Make Steph uncomfortable. Force the others to beat you. But from the very first quarter, you could tell it wasn't going to work. Curry opened the game with a deep 3 off a quick pin down. Then came a high ball screen with Looney, and Steph just danced around it, got downhill, and finished through contact at the rim. On the next possession, he pulled up from 27 feet in transition with no hesitation. Bottom of the net. Suddenly, the crowd wasn't quite as loud. One thing that stood out was how Boston tried to mix up their coverages. On some plays, they'd go drop, but Steph would calmly walk into a pull-up 3. When they hedged high, he'd split the defense, draw 2 defenders in the paint, and kick out to the perimeter. If they switched, he'd isolate and break guys down with that patented hesitation dribble into a step back. Over and over, he made the Celtics pay, no matter what they threw at him. And the Warriors' spacing helped him a ton. They'd clear the wings, run actions away from the ball, and let Steph operate at the top with shooters in both corners and a roller in the dunker spot. That meant the floor was always open, and Boston couldn't just sit help defenders at the nail. Curry was slicing through the middle, drawing help from the baseline and making reads like a quarterback. If the defense collapsed, he'd kick. If they stayed home, he'd finish. Simple basketball, executed at the highest level. One possession that really set the tone came late in the second quarter. Golden State was down, and momentum was starting to shift. Steph came off a stagger screen, caught the ball near the logo, and without even thinking pulled up from 30 feet. Cash. That shot didn't just cut the lead, it deflated the entire building. You could feel the air come out of TD Garden. The Celtics looked around like, what else can we do? Defensively, Steph wasn't hiding either. He was competing on every switch, boxing out against bigger players, and fighting through screens to stay with Smart or White. He wasn't just scoring, he was leading. By halftime, Steph already had 19 points. But it wasn't just the numbers, it was how he got them. He was patient, poised, and completely in control of the tempo. Every time Boston made a run, he answered. And going into the third quarter, that control only grew stronger. Coming out of the break, Boston tried to speed the game up. They pressured full court. They went small to switch more on the perimeter. They even experimented with some zone to try and take Curry out of rhythm. But again, it didn't matter. Golden State leaned into their two-man game. Steph and Looney. Steph and Wiggins. Screen after screen, with Steph rejecting, slipping, or dancing around defenders. At one point, Robert Williams stepped up to the level of the screen, trying to cut off Curry's driving lane, and Steph just exploded past him, finishing with a soft floater off the glass. On the next play, he pulled back and drilled a contested 3 in Smart's face. This wasn't just great offense, it was surgical, cold-blooded. He wasn't forcing anything, he was dissecting Boston, one play at a time, and that's what made this performance so special. It wasn't just about hot shooting. It was the decision-making, the leadership, the timing. Every shot had a purpose. Every pass was calculated. Every movement bent the defense a little more. And Boston, no matter how tough they were, had no answers. By the end of the third quarter, Steph had 33, and more importantly, the Warriors had the lead. Heading into the fourth quarter, the Warriors were clinging to a lead, but it felt like Boston was just one run away from blowing the game wide open. The Celtics had done it before. In games 1 and 3, they closed with force. That home crowd, that physical defense, and their ability to string together stops made them dangerous in any fourth quarter situation. But on this night, none of that would matter. Because Steph Curry was still breathing, and that meant Golden State was still alive. Early in the fourth, Boston tried to blitz. They sent two to the ball, tried to force it out of Curry's hands, and dared the role players to beat them. And for a few possessions, it looked like that strategy might work. Golden State had some empty trips. Draymond missed a floater. Poole turned the ball over. The crowd picked back up, sensing blood in the water. But the moment Curry checked back in, everything changed. With just under 8 minutes left, Steph took control. First play back, he comes off a double drag with Draymond and Looney, splits the gap, draws the help, and finishes with a high-arcing layup off the glass. Vintage. Then he walks into a pull-up three in semi-transition pure. TD Garden goes quiet. Again. But what really stood out in that final stretch wasn't just his scoring, it was his composure. While the Celtics were rushing shots, forcing drives, and losing their cool under pressure, Steph was calm. He walked the ball up, he controlled the pace. He made sure every possession ended with either a clean look or a late clock situation that he dictated. It didn't matter if Smart was draped on him, or if Tatum switched out, Curry played like. He had all the answers. One sequence midway through the quarter summed up the entire game. Boston had just cut the lead to 1. On the next trip down, Steph uses a simple on-ball screen from Wiggins, sees Horford switch out onto him, and immediately goes to work. He sizes him up, left-hand dribble, hesitation, pullback, and launches a three from well beyond the arc. Bang! The Warriors bench explodes. Steve Kerr can barely contain his grin, and Boston completely stunned. That shot gave Golden State breathing room, but it also shattered any sense of control the Celtics had. Still, Boston fought back. Tatum hit a tough step back. Brown got to the line. They weren't going down easy. But every time they clawed within a bucket, Steph answered. A layup off a curl, a relocation three after giving the ball up, a drive into a floater that touched nothing but net. It felt like he was everywhere, gliding into space, cutting off the ball, staying in constant motion. And Boston? They looked exhausted. Every screen felt heavier, every rotation a second too slow. Defensively, the Warriors locked in. Wiggins turned up the pressure on Tatum. Draymond, even with his offensive struggles, started flying around, helping, recovering, directing traffic. Looney controlled the glass. And Steph? He held his ground on switches, communicated on rotations, and made sure nothing came easy. But no matter how great the team defense was, this night belonged to one man. With just under 2 minutes to go, Golden State led by 3. The Celtics needed a stop. They tried switching, dropping, even a quick stunt from the nail. It didn't matter. Steph got the ball above the break, took one hard dribble to the left, rose up over White, and buried another 3. That made it 43, and that was the dagger. The Celtics called timeout. TD Garden was silent. This was legacy-defining stuff, not just because of the numbers, but because of the context. Game 4, on the road, down 2-1. With everything on the line and his teammates inconsistent, Steph delivered a performance that redefined how we talk about clutch. This wasn't just about saving a series. It was about proving, once and for all, that Curry wasn't just a system player or a guy who lived off screens. He was the system, the engine, the answer. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the Warriors had evened the series at 2 apiece. Steph finished with 43 points on 14 of 26 shooting, including 7 threes and 10 rebounds. He didn't just lead the Warriors, he dragged them to victory. This was the kind of performance that echoed through history, like LeBron in Game 6 in Boston, like MJ dropping 55. It was Curry's moment, his masterpiece. But the scariest part? He made it look easy. After the dust settled and the Warriors walked off the court victorious, it was clear this wasn't just any finals game. It was a turning point, a seismic shift. Because up until that moment, the narrative was slipping away from Golden State. Down 2-1, with questions swirling around Draymond's poor play, Klay's inconsistency, and the Celtics' physical dominance, the Warriors looked like a team on the brink. But all of that changed in one night, on one floor, behind one player. Stephen Curry. Let's be honest, the Celtics had the momentum. Their size was giving Golden State problems. Their switching defense had kept Curry in check the previous game, and the Warriors' half-court offense had been clunky and out of rhythm. Meanwhile, Boston's shot-making and transition game looked smoother. The media was already asking if this was the end of the Warriors' run. But Steph had other ideas. Game 4 wasn't just a battle of execution, it was a battle of will, of heart, of legacy. And Steph didn't just win that battle, he dominated it. With every bucket, he dismantled Boston's confidence. With every possession he controlled, he reminded the world exactly who he was. A once-in-a-generation offensive weapon who didn't need help, who was the help. And this wasn't just about scoring 43, it was how he did it. He took a top 2 defense in the league and made it look slow. He hunted switches. He danced around drop coverage. He pulled from range like it was warm-ups. Every adjustment Boston made, he had a counter. When they switched, he beat bigs off the dribble. When they blitzed, he slipped out early and relocated. When they sagged off, he punished them with pull-ups. Every time they blinked, he was already 2 steps ahead. But even deeper than that, this game settled the debate. For years, people questioned whether Steph could carry a team when everything broke down. Could he be that guy when there was no Kevin Durant, no super team, no overwhelming talent around him? Game 4 answered that loud and clear. He didn't just carry, he lifted everyone around him. Wiggins played his role to perfection. Looney dominated the glass. Klay hit timely shots. But it all revolved around one thing: Steph's gravity. When he was on the floor, Boston's defense bent in ways it hadn't all season. The help was earlier. The rotations were desperate. The pressure was constant. You could feel the Celtics tiring out not just from chasing him, but from thinking about chasing him. And that mental fatigue? It showed in every fourth-quarter breakdown.